Good evening and a very warm welcome. This is Primetime News on TV1. I'm Thiruni Karunaratna. We're coming to you live and direct from our Newsfirst studios here in Colombo. Before we head on to your stories in detail, first, your headlines. Government to end economic collapse. No more waste of public funds. A pledge from the President. Government imposes 9 conditions on vehicle imports. Free media movement demands justice for slain journalists. New senior DIG for the Western Province. 3 other senior police officers transferred. Habarana crash kills 2, injures 35. On to your top story for this evening. The Vehicle Importers Association of Sri Lanka said that the first consignment of vehicles imported into the country will arrive within the next few weeks. Meanwhile, a new extraordinary gazette notification was issued yesterday, easing the ban on vehicle imports in Sri Lanka. President Anurukumara Dissanayake, in his capacity as Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, issued a new extraordinary gazette notification yesterday, easing the ban on vehicle imports in Sri Lanka. What is this gazette notification? The gazette notification permits the import of all types of vehicles, including cars and vans for personal use, buses for public transport, motor vehicles for transporting goods, 3-wheelers and motorcycles. This is part of the third phase of easing import restrictions on vehicles. The Ministry of Finance issued a statement confirming that the gazette notification is effective from today. Accordingly, a required number of vehicles can be imported by the importers registered with the Department of Motor Traffic and state institutions, subject to the regulations imposed by the gazette notification. Any importer other than that is permitted to import only 1 vehicle within a period of 12 months. An affidavit including the taxpayer identification number or TIN issued by the Department of Inland Revenue along with other required documents to the Commissioner General of the Department of Motor Traffic for the registration of motor vehicles. Any imported motor vehicles shall be registered with the Department of Motor Traffic in the name of the buyer on instances when purchasing a motor vehicle from a registered importer or in the name of the importer within 90 days from the date of bill of entry or customs declaration. What new duties have been added for vehicle imports?
Previously, there were 4 types of duties. First, there was the excise duty, which was based on the unit rate. This was followed by customs duty, VAT and a luxury tax. In addition to these, the gazettes introduced a surcharge of 50% on cars and jeeps, calculated as 50% of the customs duty. As a result, we can expect a noticeable price increase.
දැනට තියෙන තත්ත්වයට එක මේ සියලු බදු වර්ග කොච්චර බදු වර්ග ඇඩ් වෙලා තියෙනවද ඒක ප්‍රතිශතයක් කියන්නේ සියල්ල එක් කරාට පස්සේ ප්‍රතිශතාත්මකව බදු ප්‍රමාණයේ යම් වැඩිවීමක් තියෙනවද ඒක කියන්න පුළුවන් එහෙම
හැබැයි ඒක ප්‍රතිශතාත්මකව නිකන්
There is no fixed figure for the increase as it depends on the engine capacity and value of the vehicle. The total duties can vary, with some vehicles seeing an increase of 150% while others may experience an increase of 300 to 400%.
How long will it take to import the vehicles?
This is a quick process. We can bring vehicles to Sri Lanka within 3 to 4 weeks. Vans can be imported from Japan by the end of February or the beginning of March. We expect vehicles like cabs to arrive in Sri Lanka by around the 20th or 25th of February.
What will happen to vehicle import permits?
I believe permits will not be used this year. The government is not in a position to provide permits based on its current needs.
President Anurukumara Dissanayake says that the country will never again face an economic downfall. He made these comments while participating in a public meeting held in Galgamuwa today. The president also clarified certain points regarding vehicle imports, upcoming economic strategies and the government's policies against fraud and corruption.
දීර්ඝ කාලයක් අනුගමනය කළද ආර්ථික ප්‍රතිපත්තීන් හේතු කොටගෙන දීර්ඝ කාලයක් අනුගමනය කළද දේශපාලන ප්‍රතිපත්තීන් හේතු කොටගෙන අපේ රට විනාශයේ පතුලටම තල්ලු කරලා
We as a country had hit rock bottom thanks to the economic and political policies that were in effect for a long time. Now there is a certain amount of dollar reserves. The gas shortage is no more. There is no fuel shortage. However, the economy has not fully recovered. Can a country in such a situation be entirely rebuilt in 2 months? That cannot be done. We need to work hard, put in our efforts and pull our country out of the abyss. I can promise you one thing. We all suffered 2 years ago. We will build the country once again so that our children will never have to face any such situation ever again. Today we gave permission for the importation of vehicles for personal use after many years. This was a decision that we had to make with much caution. That is because we do not have much dollars with us. We have not imported vehicles in about 5 years. What will happen if everyone starts to import vehicles now? A large portion of the existing dollar reserves will flow out of the country. Also, what will happen if anyone who was waiting to import vehicles decide to do so in February? The demand for dollars will shoot up this month itself. Vehicles do need to be imported. However, we need to open imports with much caution. Because of this, we made this decision after carefully thinking about it. For some vehicles, we increase the duties. The prices of vehicles will increase anyway. The vehicles in the market now were imported at the time the dollar was 185 rupees. What happens when the dollar rises to 300 rupees? That alone would result in a 40% increase in vehicle prices. That would be simply due to the increase of the value of the US dollar. We have imposed some additional duties as well. If a sudden demand for vehicles and imports arises, that too would create a brand new crisis. Is the solution not to import vehicles? We could have postponed this by 1 more year. However, we decided to gradually ease the ban on vehicle imports. At first, prices will be quite high. However, we might take steps in the future to reduce the prices.
හොඳ ගේන්න නැතුව ඉන්නකද ඕනනම් තව අවුරුද්දක් අපිට නොගෙන ගේන්න නැතුව ඉන්න තිබ්බා. හැබැයි අපි අපේක්ෂා කරා ලිහිල් කරන්න ඕන ක්‍රමානුකූලව ආරම්භයේදී මිල ඉහළයයි සමහර විට කාලයක් යනකොට මිල අඩු කිරීමේ බලාපොරොත්තුකුත් අපේ තියෙනවා.
ආණ්ඩුවට ඇති ජාත්‍යන්තර සහයෝගය පිළිබඳව එහිදී
ඒ රටවල් එක්ක අපි තෙල් පිළිබඳ යම් එකගතාවයකට එන්න පුළුවන්ද කියලා සාකච්ඡා කරන්න. අද ලෝකයේ හැම රටක්ම හැම ජාත්‍යන්තර සංවිධානය
We plan on making an official visit to the Middle East in mid-February. We are looking into possibilities of reaching an agreement on oil. By now, all foreign governments and international organizations are extremely impressed with our government. Tomorrow, we plan on inking an agreement with the Deputy Minister of Japan. We are also holding discussions with the Asian Development Bank. The World Bank has agreed to allocate the biggest amount of funds that it has allocated to our country so far by next year. We are making progress. These days, we are putting in the biggest effort into resolving the mess made by the previous administrations. We have barely been able to launch new initiatives. This country has not been ruled properly. Let me tell you about the issue at the port. Usually about 7.8 million containers arrive at the port. However, only 15% of that makes it into the country. 85% are reloaded onto another ship. This is an exchange hub. This is extremely important given the strategic location of our country. Not even in India are this many containers exchanged. However, the 15% that make it into the country need to be cleared soon. If not, a congestion will be created. And even the ships that come for container exchange will not come back to the port of Colombo. We realize that we need a plan to clear these containers promptly. There is another issue. Some containers are cleared in the afternoon. Although they are cleared in the afternoon, they retain it within the port until night. Why? Because it is impossible to go to Petta in the afternoon. Usually stocks of rice and dal are brought to Petta. This would increase the congestion. They should have known that this issue would arise at one point and taken preventive measures. We have identified a 2-acre plot of land in Blue Mandal and will be completing renovations there in a couple of days. We will bring the containers from the port to this land. We will inspect them there. We are holding discussions with the Asian Development Bank to build a big container yard in Kerawalapitta. This would take about a year and a half. This means we could bring containers out of the Colombo port to Kerawalapitta. We can inspect these containers there and then clear them. Then there would be no congestion in the port. Governments need to plan like this. We have planned to bring 11 million containers by 2030. In March, the Western Jetty will be declared open. In July, the Eastern Jetty will be opened. More ships will then arrive in the country. This would mean more containers as well. The leader of our country had no such vision. They couldn't make a plan, knowing very well that more containers would be coming into the country. It is the same when the passport issue is concerned. They created that mess. We have planned to completely resolve that issue. We have re-employed people who retired, plan on operating the passport office 24 hours and resolve this issue.
එළිවෙනකම් පාස්පෝර්ට් කාර්යාලය විවෘත කරලා ඉතා ඉක්මනින්ම මේ පාස්පෝර්ට් ප්‍රශ්න අපි විසඳන්නම්.
The president also spoke about the accusations made against the government when reducing expenses.
මගේ වැය ශීර්ෂ 50%කින් කපලා තියෙනවා මේ අවුරුද්දේ. ඒගොල්ලෝ වියදම් කරපුවා.
My expenditure had been cut by 50% this year. I will be spending exactly half the amount that they used to spend. I can assure you I will make a saving from that amount too. We also asked our former presidents to make some sacrifices for the country. Last year, the security expenses of one former president was 1,700,000 rupees. The approximate monthly expense was 60 million rupees. We cannot bear such a big expense for just one person. It is not a fair amount. When we reduced the number of security personnel, they claimed that we were taking revenge. We were not taking revenge. We were simply trying to prevent the wastage of public funds. We told him that his residence is too big to be maintained. Take this arena for instance. The area of this is 10,000 square feet. That residence is spread over 30,000 square feet. That is 3 times as big as this arena. The house is as big as a stadium. However, only 2 live there. It is also a single-story house. However, there is a lift there for some reason. The plot of land is 1 acre and 3 perches. Must we bear this expense? It is simply not fair. We told them that this is too much of a burden. Then they started saying that we are trying to evict them and that we are seeking revenge. This is not revenge. We are simply trying to get them to stop wasting public funds. Some people cannot afford 3 meals a day. Must we maintain former presidents like this? We request them to hand over this residence. If they really have nowhere else to go, we can give them a house large enough for 2 people to live. How can they say no to that? This individual was president for 10 years. For all those 10 years, he had not withdrawn his salary. He hadn't even known that a salary was being debited to his account. It was his personal secretary had taken the money. Same goes for his son. I saw a report saying that his son too, for many years, had not withdrawn his salary. For someone to forget their basic salary, how rich can they possibly be? I will say this again. If you have no place to go, we will give you a house. However, that house will not be this one. Same goes for the female former president. For her office and security office, a total of 15,500 square feet for one. How is this fair? Do you think that we are taking revenge? Let's civilize our country. We need to learn to save public funds. We can let go of the funds wasted in the past. Stop doing it at least now.
The president also expressed views on opposition groups coming together to challenge the government.
Regardless of how hard the groups that lost are working to regain power, this government will not back down until we have your support. We didn't come into power just to leave. Everyone is panicking. Everyone is uniting quickly, claiming they're standing together against suppression. But what suppression have we caused? Wasn't it them who engaged in suppression? We have not done so. But we will pursue justice. We are given a mandate to fight against all form of crime. And that is exactly what we will do. If they choose to see this as revenge, that's their perception. But it's not revenge. It's justice.
Rohit Rohitha Gunawardena, who was previously active in politics under the leadership of former President Mahinda Rajapaksa and then was later elected to Parliament as a member of the New Democratic Front led by former President Ranil Wickremesinghe in the most recent election, visited Mahinda Rajapaksa's residence in Vijayarama this morning. After inquiring about Mahinda Rajapaksa's well-being, Rohitha Gunawardena told reporters that the government was conducting a political vendetta against the former president.
අයින්ද රාජපක්ෂ ජනාධිපතිතුමාගේ සපදුක් බල්ල යන්න කතා කරලා යන්න කියලා ආවේ තුමා බල්ල යන්න. මම දකින විදිහට මහින්ද රාජපක්ෂ කියලා කියන්නේ නාමයක් නෙවෙයි සන්නාමයක්. තුමා බය වෙලා තින්නේ නෑ මොකකට බය වෙන්නද? එහෙම බය වෙන්න අවශ්‍යතාවයක් නැහැ. පරිදි කරලා තියෙනවා නම් දනුවන් දෙන එක ඒක ඉතාමත්ම අයිතියක්. හැබැයි දැඩි ලෙස දේශපාලන වෛරයෙන් ඒ තමන්ගේ ප්‍රතිවිරුද්ධ දේශපාලන මතධර්ම ආදී හා බලපු ආණ්ඩු වලට ආයුෂ අඩුයි. වැඩි කල් යන්න හම්බුන්නේ නැහැ. ඒ නිසා අපි පැහැදිලිව දකිනවා යම් විදියකින් මහින්ද රාජපක්ෂ ජනාධිපතිතුමාගෙන් දේශපාලන වශයෙන් පරිගන්න හදනවා නම් ඉතාමත්ම ඒක දේශපාලන කුහකකමක් කියන එක තමයි අපිට පැහැදිලිව කියන්නේ. ඒතකොට දැන් ගෙදින් දොට්ට දැම්මොත් එළියට. ඒතකොට මහින්ද ජනාධිපතිතුමා මේකෙන් එළියට දැම්මොත් මේ රටේ මිනිස්සු ඉන්නවා මහින්ද ජනාධිපතිතුමා වෙනුවෙන් කොහොම හරි රුපියල් හරි එක්කහුව කරලා ගයක් හරි හදලා දෙන්න.
The Free Media movement stresses that those responsible for the killings of journalists in the years following January 2009 must be held accountable and brought to justice immediately, regardless of their status.
Black January is observed to commemorate the journalists and media institutions that were killed, disappeared or attacked during the government in power since 2009. Several media organizations in Sri Lanka have referred to January as Black January due to the numerous significant incidents of media suppression and attacks on journalists that occurred during January, particularly under the governments in power in 2009 and the years that followed.
The Black January commemoration traces its origins back to 2009, a month that became a symbol of the relentless assault on press freedom in Sri Lanka. It was during this time that journalists, media institutions and press freedom advocates faced an unprecedented wave of violence, intimidation and suppression. On January 8, 2009, Lasantha Wickrematunge, editor of the Sunday Leader, was brutally murdered in broad daylight. On January 24, 2010, just days before the presidential election, Prageeth Ignaligoda, a journalist and cartoonist known for his critical views, was forcibly disappeared. That same month, in 2009, the Sirasa TV studio was attacked and set ablaze, a clear attempt to silence an independent media outlet that was critical of the government at that time. Today, we gather to pay tribute to the many journalists who have paid the ultimate price for upholding the fundamental principles of press freedom. At this critical juncture, as Sri Lanka enters a new chapter under the National People's Power government, we look forward to real changes in how media freedom and journalist safety are addressed. We expect this administration to move beyond rhetorics and take decisive action to end impunity for crimes against journalists by ensuring independent investigations and holding perpetrators accountable, abolishing repressive laws that curtail free expression, including those misused to intimidate journalists and suppress dissent, foster a safer environment for journalists to work without fear or violence, harassment or censorship. This is not just our hope, it's our demand. Press freedom is not a privilege, it's a fundamental pillar of democracy.
Sirasa වගේ ආයතන ගිනි තියලා තිබුණු පරිසරයක ලසන්ත වගේ
In an environment where institutions like Sirasa were set ablaze, journalists like Lasantha Wickrematunge were murdered, and the north and east became increasingly dangerous, with a large number of people, including Sugirtha Rajan and Nimal Rajan, losing their lives. The Tamil community in the country was silenced, considering that many of the victims were killed in January itself. We symbolically use this month to reflect on what can be done to overcome these challenges.
මේ තත්ත්වයෙන් මිදෙන්න ගත හැකි පියවර තමයි එදා අපි සාකච්ඡාවට ගත්තා.
Another phase of the Clean Sri Lanka program took place today in Colombo Fort, starting in front of the Colombo Fort railway station.
The Clean Sri Lanka program in Colombo Fort was attended by a group including Deputy Minister Attorney Sunil Watakala, Deputy Speaker Rizvi Sali, Western Province Governor Hanif Yusuf and Rai Kali Balthazar. Today's Clean Sri Lanka program saw the participation of numerous government institutions.
On tonight's edition of What Happened to the Village, we delve into yet another project that was funded by taxpayers only to be abandoned halfway through.
What happened to the village?
The Madarigiriya Bisopura Nabadavava drinking water project was inaugurated under the Pibidemu Polonarwa development program. This massive water tank was built under this drinking water project in 2016. Under this water scheme, clean drinking water was to be provided to 14 villages, including Nabadavava, Bisopura, Dahamvava, Ambagasvava, Darshanapura and Palliagodalla. The project was valued at 1,200 million rupees or 1.2 billion rupees. Although the water tank was fully constructed, the remaining work was halted midway.
මේ වෙන විට කවුරු වැවේ සිට මේ දක්වා ජලනලය එළලා තියෙනවා. මෙතනින් පහළට යන ජලනලය ඒ කියන්නේ නිවාස වලට බෙදා දෙන ජලනල ටික මේ වෙනකලවත් පාරේ එළලා නැහැ. ජලනල දාගෙන ගිහින් තියෙනවා, කාණු කපාගෙන ගිහින් තියෙනවා, මගක් වහලා තියෙනවා. එතනින් එහාට ආයෙ දාලා නැහැ. මේ වැතේ වග්වඩු රෝගීන් විශාල වශයෙන් ඉන්නවා. ජලය තියෙනවා. නමුත් බීමට සුදුසු ජලය නැති ප්‍රශ්නයක් තියෙනවා.
පිළිපාදු ජලයක් මේ අත්‍යවශ්‍යමයි. නමුත් ඉතින් ඒ ගැන කිසිම සැලකිලිල්ලක් නැහැ. කවුරුවත් තාමත් තියාපුති හැම මග නැවතිලා තියෙනවා. ඔක්කොම මේ උත්තියලා යනවා එහෙන් අලි පාගනවා මේ බලන්නකො මේ බට දිහා බලපුවාම මේවා කොච්චර වියදම් කරලා මුදල් වැය කරලාද මොන රජයකින් වුණත් කරලා තියෙන එක ඉතින් ලෝක අපරාධයක් බලන්න මේ මිනිස්සුන්ගේ ඇත්තම කියනවා නම් මේ වතුර ටිකක් නැහැ මිනිස්සු ඔය ලොරි වල වතුර ගේනවා ඒව තමයි සල්ලි දීලා ගන්න ඉතින් ඒකත් වෙලාවට එන්නෙත් නැහැ.
Over 7,500 families were expected to benefit from the Nabadavava drinking water project. However, what has been constructed so far is now gradually getting destroyed. These villagers who wake up every day just to see no progress being made at all have one simple expectation: the provision of clean drinking water as soon as possible.
What happened to the village?
In a world where we often take everyday conveniences for granted, it's quite easy to forget the challenges faced by those living in vastly different circumstances. This is the story of communities in rural Sri Lanka, where basic necessities such as clean water and easy access to towns are a daily struggle.
Imagine having to walk 3 kilometers just to get to the nearest town, a trip that would be a mere 300 meters if only a bridge existed. This is the daily reality for people in Kuruvita and Eknaligoda in the Ratnapura district. Beyond the lack of infrastructure, these communities also struggle with access to clean drinking water. Their plea for help isn't for grand solutions, but for something so basic.
Newsfirst with the people.
This Litfest, let's make it count. Fuel dreams, change the future. For hundreds of students at the Sri Gunananda School in Udugama Gaol. Drop your books at the Gum at the Book Drive. Let's turn the page together from the 6th to the 9th of February. The Gum at the Give a Book project at the Gaol Litfest.
On to more local news now. 2 people died in a face-to-face collision of a bus and a van on the Habarana Trincomalee Road. 35 who were injured have been admitted to the Habarana Regional Hospital and the Dambula Base Hospital for treatment.
A private bus carrying a group of pilgrims from Hikkadua Gaol was en route to Trincomalee. The van involved in the accident was travelling from Kinya to Katunayaka to drop a person at the Bandaranaike International Airport. The driver of the van and a woman who was on the bus were killed in the accident. The deceased driver of the van was a 32-year-old resident of Kenya and a father of 2. The deceased woman was a 66-year-old resident of Hikkaduwa. 55 were on board the bus at the time of the accident. These pilgrims had departed Hikkaduwa early this morning on a 2-day pilgrimage in Trincomalee and Jaffna. The driver of the bus was arrested in connection with the accident.
The Ministry of Defence says that information regarding 180 firearms issued to civilians has not been presented for the audit conducted. The ministry further says that legal action will be taken through court orders against licence holders who have not submitted the required details of their firearms. Meanwhile, Yoshitha Rajapaksa has handed over a total of 7 firearms that he possessed to the Ministry of Defence. According to the ministry's media director, Colonel Nalin Herath, 2 firearms that were not surrendered earlier were handed over yesterday. Yoshitha Rajapaksa had previously surrendered only 5 firearms in line with the government's firearm handover initiative. The audit into the firearms was concluded on the 21st of January and Rajapaksa had handed over the remaining 2 firearms to the Ministry of Defence thereafter. 4 senior police officers have been transferred with effect from the 5th of February under the approval of the National Police Commission. Among those who have been transferred are 2 senior Deputy Inspector Generals of Police. Senior DIG Sanjeeva Dharmaratna has been transferred from the post of Senior DIG in charge of the Sabaragamu province to the post of Senior DIG in charge of the Western province. Senior DIG KPM Gunaratna, who was previously in charge of the Western province, has been transferred to the Sabaragamu province. The police also announced that DIG in charge of the Kaluthara division, NL Vijay Sena, has been appointed as the Senior Deputy Inspector General in charge of the Welfare Division. Additionally, the police headquarters say that Deputy Inspector General of Police W.J. Padmini has been appointed in charge of the Kaluthara division. Meanwhile, 7 police teams have launched investigations to apprehend the suspects of the triple murder in Mahabodhibatta, Hiniduma, Gaul. A senior police officer said that officers of the Criminal Investigation Department as well as the Police Special Task Force are also involved in this investigation.
A shooting that took place recently in an abandoned hotel in Mahabodhibatta, Hiniduma, Gaul resulted in 3 fatalities. Police said that the victims were among 5 people present at the scene who were reportedly consuming alcohol at the time. 3 died at the scene while the other 2 managed to escape. The 2 people who escaped the scene later turned themselves into the police. Preliminary investigations have revealed that a financial dispute may have been a contributing factor to these murders. During the investigation, it was also revealed that one of the victims, Neville, who was a resident of Ambalankote, had reportedly given over 1.5 million rupees to the owner of a hotel, which he had lent to another individual. Police suspect that the money was provided as part of an arrangement to secure employment in Israel. Could this loan and the related transaction have been the motive behind the murders? If the motive is indeed financial, it is now believed that both the job seeker who provided the 1.5 million rupees to go to Israel and the intermediary who lent that money to a third party were killed in the shooting. However, further investigations are still ongoing. The shooting was carried out with a T-56 assault rifle and 28 spent cartridge casings were found at the scene. The hotel owner who was killed in the shooting was a 55-year-old resident of Mahabodhibatta in Panangala. The other 2 victims were residents of Hiniduma and Ambalangoda. The police said that the location where the shooting occurred was an abandoned property that had previously been used as a hotel.
Newsfirst, main sponsor. International Edu Expo with EdLocate on the 1st and 2nd February. Call us to register.
International Edu Expo, organized by EdLocate on 1st February 2025 at the Taj Samudra and on the 2nd of February at the Kandy City Centre Banquet Hall. Call our hotline to register for the event.
The CCPI-based headline inflation continued to remain in the negative territory in January 2025. On a year-on-year basis, the CCPI-based headline inflation continued to remain in the negative territory, recording a deflation of 4.0% in January 2025. The food category recorded a deflation of 2.6%. The non-food category recorded a deflation of 4.7%. Up next is Happy Headlines. This wonderful sight was captured by our camera in Batticalow. This bird is a black-headed ibis. This is their mating season. The black-headed ibis, which is commonly sighted in flocks near wetlands, has attracted the attention of both local and international tourists.
Happy Headlines.
What exactly is DeepSeek and how does it differ from ChatGPT? How are Sri Lankans leveraging this technology? Here's a special edition of The Known Unknown with Newsfirst's Budmin Amaradivakara.
In a moment, a lot of things can change, and that's how DeepSeek turned the tables in the tech industry in the whole world. During the past few days, DeepSeek has been the most downloaded app in the US and also in India in the Apple's App Store. So Donald Trump has said DeepSeek is a wake-up call for the US. On the other side, Australia has said to be very careful with DeepSeek, the open AI source model. So what is this DeepSeek? Why is everyone talking about it? DeepSeek is an open AI source model which is quite similar to ChatGPT, as some people say, but according to the experts in the tech industry, it is quite updated compared to all the other AI models in the market. So what made DeepSeek more significant? Why is everyone talking about it? It's because it is an AI model developed using less advanced and fewer computer chips compared to all the other tech giants in the United States of America. So in a research paper released last week, the model's development team said that they had spent less than $6 million on computing power to train this model. So it is compared to ChatGPT and other AI source models as well. So that's why everyone's talking about it. So Nvidia lost close to $600 billion in market cap on Monday, the biggest drop for any company on a single day in the history of the United States of America. So a lot of people have a lot of ideas about DeepSeek. Some say it's good, some say it's bad, some say that it might be a threat to national security. So when we go around Facebook, when we go around other social media platforms in Sri Lanka, we see people commenting about DeepSeek, sharing memes about DeepSeek, and also they have tried different things, especially using the Sinhala language. So let's have a look about what our Sri Lankans are doing with DeepSeek. So sometimes this is a fight between two countries, the US, then China. So who will win this race? What will be the next move? Let's wait and see.
APAD Sri Lanka's search and rescue team conducted a refresher training course at the Mount Lavinia beach today. A refresher training course was conducted today at the Mount Lavinia beach for APAD Sri Lanka's search and rescue team. This training was part of a program following the team's recent specialized training in Taiwan, which focused on strengthening their disaster response capabilities.
So this is a refresher training where for a couple of us who went to Taiwan for a training where we got proper technical exposure in swiftwater rescue and rope training. Here we are doing a refresher training, so we can distribute that knowledge we gathered there in Taiwan with the rest of our team members.
The intensive training, conducted by internationally certified experts, equipped the team with advanced skills in swift water and rope rescue techniques. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's coalition government has unveiled its first full-year budget after his party lost an outright majority in parliament last year. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman announced measures to counter slowing growth, rising prices and flagging consumption among the middle class in Asia's third largest economy. The Ministry of External Affairs has allocated 54.8 billion Indian rupees for aid to foreign nations, slightly higher than last year's 48.8 billion Indian rupees. The allocation for Sri Lanka saw an increase as well.
A. Accelerate growth. B. Secure inclusive development. C. Invigorate private sector investment.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government has unveiled an annual budget focused on appealing to the country's middle class and spurring economic growth by boosting agriculture and manufacture. Announcing the annual budget in Parliament today, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman said people earning up to 1.28 million Indian rupees per year will not have to pay any taxes, raising the threshold from 700,000 Indian rupees. The government also lowered tax rates for people earning above the new threshold as the world's fifth largest economy aims to boost domestic demand amid uncertainty over the global economic outlook due to potential new tariff barriers. According to reports, the move will result in an annual 1 trillion Indian rupee hit to treasury revenues. Measures to assist the poor, youth, farmers and women were also included in the budget for 2025 to 2026. Sitharaman also announced a new fund for startups and said the government will provide more money to promote innovation in partnership with the private sector. She also announced the nuclear energy mission to drive India's transition towards clean energy with the goal of developing at least 100 gigawatts of nuclear power by 2047. The Ministry of External Affairs has allocated 54.8 billion Indian rupees for aid to foreign nations, slightly higher than last year's 48.8 billion Indian rupees. The ministry budget has placed a key emphasis on India's neighbourhood first policy. The allocation for Sri Lanka saw an increase of 2.45 billion Indian rupees to 3 billion Indian rupees.
The country is its people. In line with this,
Meanwhile, a total of 183 prisoners were freed today under a ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas. Buses carrying Palestinian prisoners released under the Gaza ceasefire deal arrived at the European hospital in Khan Yunis in southern Gaza. The Rafah border crossing was also opened for the first time in nearly 9 months to allow sick and wounded Palestinian patients in Gaza to travel to Egypt for medical treatment. 3 captives, Keith Siegel, Ofer Calderon and Yarden Bibas, have been released by Hamas in 2 separate locations in southern and northern Gaza. Shifting your attention to the United States, a small medical transport plane crashed into several buildings in northeast Philadelphia, setting homes and vehicles ablaze and injuring people on the ground. According to Jet Rescue Air Ambulance, a medical aircraft company, the plane had been on a medical transport mission carrying a child patient and her mother and 4 crew members. Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro said during a news conference at the scene of the crash that they know that there will be a loss, calling it an awful aviation disaster. The country's Ministry of Foreign Affairs said on X the 6 people aboard the plane were Mexican. According to U.S. media reports, a spokesperson for the Temple University Hospital, Jeans, in Philadelphia, said they had treated 6 people who were injured on the ground during the crash. 3 of those people have been treated and released, while details are not yet known about the condition of the other 3. Emergency crews rushed to the evening crash scene as residents crowded streets littered with fiery debris and pieces of the aircraft. Witnesses described a chaotic scene with people who were injured and structures ablaze. Spokesman for Jet Rescue Air Ambulance told foreign media that the child on board the plane was receiving care in the US for a life-threatening condition and was returning to Mexico. The spokesman said that the girl was accompanied by her mother, a pilot, a co-pilot, a doctor and a paramedic. Videos of the incident online show the plane coming down quickly and sparking a huge fireball. Witnesses described shrapnel from the crash damaging cars and sending burning debris into the streets. Videos of the aftermath show burning cars mangled. And that's a wrap of Primetime News for tonight. Thank you for watching. Take care. Good night.